I was born in Canada, in Winnipeg, and of course, being a Canadian, it's like church. Um, Started when I was around 5 and have been doing it for 60 years as a player and 25 years as a referee and about 20 years in officiating leadership and management. 15 years, 13 years of that was being USA Hockey's Colorado referee in chief.
What was it like when you first started reffing, regardless of where it was to where it is now?
So when I first moved here, moved to Denver in 1989, there really was not a lot of hockey here. There was 5 or 6 associations. There were not a lot of referees. And then I was here for 5 years and I moved away for a couple and then came back in 96, right after the Avalanche came here. And over the next 10 years, the number of youth hockey associations grew by 500%, and the number of officials grew from about 100, 125 to well over 600 in the next 10 years. And so the sport grew tremendously fast in about a 10-year span. And we grew with it, as officiating associations. We kept recruiting, and overall, it was a really good growth. And overall, the game is the game. There's some animosity on both sides of the boards, from coaches and players to officials, but that's always been there. We try and strive to call the game as it plays. Nobody has any preconceived ideas on how it's going to go. But it seems the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years around the country, around the world for that matter, it's becoming different. We are having a lot of, let's call them, issues with parental involvement and a general lack of respect. That's the way I look at it. And that lack of respect creeps into some teams, some coaches, and the job of officiating is becoming extremely difficult. And we're losing probably at least 50% every year of people that sign up to try this, and they do it for a little while and they just go, I'm done. I'm not putting up with this. And we are going to approach a point where we're not going to have enough officials to officiate youth hockey. We're already there here in Denver. We're down here in Denver, the local association. We're probably down 250 people from a normal 500 person roster. We're already having to one-man games because we just don't have enough officials. And I've seen a lot of incidents, both here and around the country, of people just doing really ludicrous things.
You say you don't ref for the money. You
No,
ref for
no.
the kids. Tell me
Well,
why you got into reffing.
I got into reffing. Okay, it's kind of a funny story. I got into reffing 24 years ago when I was 40 years old. And really the sole reason I got into it is I was a single parent for about 6 or 7 years with my daughter. And she went back to live with her mom and stepdad for 3 years worth of high school. And all of a sudden I went from a man with no time to a man with all the time in the world. And really didn't want to play all the time. And there were a number of times over the course of one season where I had gotten to know all the referees, because I've been playing in adult league here for 20 years, longer. And I'm the guy that, does this. And I heard from so many people, put on some you-know-whatting stripes or shut up, and I decided, okay, fine, I'll give it a try. So I went to my first seminar as became a level 1 official, which was taught by a young man who was, I think, 25 or 26 at the time, and who ultimately has turned out to be one of my best friends. He's an attorney here in Denver. And thus began a 24-year run of something absolutely amazing. Officiating reaches in and takes hold of you because you're part of the game. It's an amazing skate. You're there with the players. You form these in-game relationships. You're always talking. You're always, complimenting and telling people to knock stuff off, and you see things start to develop. There's really no avocation like it, because not only do you have to know the rule set, but you have to be the best skater on the ice. And that's unique to any sport. Name me one other sport that requires that over and above calling rules and calling penalties and calling goals. Almost anybody can run up and down a field or a court, but skating's different. Skating gets in your blood and it stays there. So I have been official for 24 years. I kept track for a long time of the number of games I've done. And I quit about 5, 6 years ago, but it's well over 6,000. Youth hockey, adult hockey, pro hockey, NCAA division, the ACHA. It's hard. I've done so many games, and a lot of officials are like that, and the overwhelming majority of them go off perfect. The kids, the athletes, they come, they play. There's a winner, there's a loser. They have fun. Losing teams probably not that happy all the time, but the games go off for the most part very, very well. But you get that small percentage that don't, and it could be just one call that sets somebody off. It could be several. It could be comments made by somebody. It could be things coming from the stands, from the parents. It could be anything. But, overwhelmingly, most of the games go off just fine.
So if a majority of the time things go well, why are their kids not wanting to ref, or why is the reffing dropping off?
Predominantly parents and coaches. So growing up in Canada, it's the R word. You're taught from day one respect. In sports, in life, in business. I may not like you, but I respect you because we're all in this together, especially in hockey. Every coaching talk, every speech starts with respect. I think we've lost that here. I think we have...
Here being
the United States of America. And I think we see it in more than just sports. I mean, we're not going to get into any other discussions on other things, but we see it. Parents and coaches just do not respect officials, period. I won't say all, because I would say, like the majority of games, the majority of parents are okay. They're just enjoying what their child's activity happens to be. But there is a percentage of them that if their child is playing squirt level hockey, 10 and under, and at squirt level hockey, the officials that are working those levels, they're beginners too. They might only be 13 years old, 12, 13, 14. They are learning their craft, but they are yelled at, they are badgered, they are, even by the players, and that's coming from parents and coaches, and they reach a point where, part of you is doing it for fun because you get to stay involved in the game, you get to give back to the game, you get a good skate in. For young kids, for a lot of them, it's their first job. They get paid to work these games. They're expected to be professionals, and while we can be professional in our conduct, at that age, you're not going to know the entire rulebook. You are going to make some mistakes. But you know what? So are the kids playing. And so are the beginner coaches who are coaching those levels. They have no right to deride anybody or scream and yell at them. But they're doing it. And it is the two biggest reasons we can't keep officials. Plain and simple.
Like in every business, there's always some jerk, some guy you wonder how he got there. Can there be refs like that? It's fair to. I'm thinking that's
Yes.
fair to say.
It is indicative of every piece of society. And actually, I have a joke up on my wall. I can't find it, but it's a picture of God, if you are so inclined. And he's standing in a kitchen, and he's sprinkling all kinds of things into an earth. And he's got lizards and spiders and birds and light-skinned people and dark-skinned people and several other things in jars behind them on the shelves. And on the bottom, it's got a little speech balloon, and it says, just to make things interesting, and he's holding a jar that says jerks. So you're 100% correct, yes. Are there bad referees? Sure. Not everybody comes out perfect. Not everybody strives for perfection. We can't be perfect. We can strive for excellence. We can't be perfect. It's not possible. Are there people who probably shouldn't be in the officiating profession? Yep. Just like there are people who shouldn't be in the surgical buying profession or the police enforcement profession or the firemen. It happens. It's a job that weeds them out pretty quickly, because if you have enough bad experiences in a game and enough bad supervised games, ultimately you stop being assigned games. So if you're crappy at it, you don't stay in it very long. To be blunt, I mean
Yeah, no, that's good to know.
We can't afford to have people not paying attention and not trying to do their best out there.
Can you just speak to the fact that, whatever job I have, whatever job you have, we make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And reffing is no different. But it is,
well,
because you have a second to make that decision.
We are, and I've used this line many, many times, we are expected to be judge, jury, and executioner within milliseconds after we see an infraction and blow our whistle. Do we make mistakes? It would be ludicrous of me to say no. We do, especially in higher level hockey, because the older the kids get, the faster they get, the more skilled they get, the more intelligent they are with trying to get away with things, right? I'm a player, I get it, right? You've been involved, you understand it. Do we miss a lot? No. We skate differently. We teach proper skating for referees. You're not, as a player, you're very frenetic on your skates. You're up and down, you're side to side, because you're chasing what? You're chasing this puck, right? As referees, we're not chasing anything. We're following along behind the play, back and forth. About 25, 30 feet behind the play, just watching every player, every stick, every set of hands. And all we're doing is making sure the game is being played under the rules. If somebody breaks a rule, up goes the arm, up goes the arm. There you go. Call a penalty. Like I said, do we make mistakes? Yeah, but it's pretty rare.
What is your take on parents who may or may not know the rules? When your average game that you're reffing, do you think those people in the audience know the rules?
No, they don't. I'll guarantee it. If there's 100 people in the stands, there might be one or two that do. And mostly because they might be officials or they've had children in the game for quite a while. You don't learn anything by watching the NHL, which is where most people come up with their opinion of a rule. Well, the USA Hockey Rule Book, I don't have one handy, it's about yay thick, inch and a half. The NHL Rule Book is about that thick, it's about a quarter inch. And people don't seem to understand that the NHL is a show. They call it the show for a reason. They want the kids, some of them are kids, they want the players playing on the edge. They want speed, they want intensity. And there are some things that don't translate into the youth game in that regard. So the rules are very different. Some of them are the same. I mean, the base rule set is very similar, but...
Do you think that's part of the problem with what goes on at hockey games?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anybody that has a kid in hockey, or a child, pick your term, they're fans. First and foremost, they're fans of the game. They may just be fans of their children's level, but they're probably NHL fans or college fans, maybe junior hockey fans. Therein lies another problem. I just mentioned 4 different levels of play. There's 4 different rule books. There's a different rule book for each level. So knowing all the rules is impossible. There's actually 9 different rule books in the United States. Nobody knows them all. Some of us are fortunate enough to work more than one level. I've been lucky. I got to work youth hockey, college hockey. I refereed 6 different NHL training camps, so their rules are different. And that's about it. But like I said, there's 9 here in the United States.
Why don't they just make one set of rules?
Boy, you're asking the question that's been on everybody's lips for generations. Step outside the United States, the rest of the world, one rule book, International Ice Hockey Federation. Step back into the U.S., now you're dealing with 9 different rule sets.
Too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yes, hands down.
What's it like for you out there when it does get heated? When there's parents yelling at you,
It takes an awful lot of self-control, but you just keep skating up and down the ice and you just keep trying to officiate the game. There are certain moments that come along, and it's usually at a stoppage in play, where a parent or two or a group will cross the line, where they will verbally and vocally start deriding players from the other team, start deriding the officials, and basically just becoming detrimental to the playing of the game. We, at those points in time, have to make a decision. Do we try to just keep the game going, or do we throw them out? I'm a big believer, and all my friends will tell you the same thing. I have zero problem removing parents from an ice rink. If you can't be an adult and let your child enjoy the sport, let the kids play, let the officials officiate, let the coaches coach, whatever happens, happens. It's not going to be perfect. Nothing ever is. If you can't just let that happen and enjoy that moment with your child, you don't deserve to be in the building. If all you're going to do is contribute derogatory yelling and theatrics and histrionics and stuff like that, you're not going to watch the game. And I think that's a fair thing to do, because 100% of the time when a problem parent or coach has been removed from the game, the kids are thankful. The kids will actually thank us and say, wow, this is fun now. Happens all the time. The kids know what's going on. They're smart. They're intelligent young men and women, boys and girls. They get it. It's hard to play when you have that one dad who's always screaming and yelling. And it happens. It happens too much.
What is the worst thing that's happened to you personally?
It just happened a week ago. Not even a week ago. It happened last Saturday night. I was reffing a Bantam B game up in Vail, Colorado at a tournament. And it was a perfectly normal game. A 3-1 victory for one team, or 3-1 score. There was it's a typical Bantam B game, maybe 4 or 5 penalties on each team. Some skilled players, some not so skilled players, but that's Bantam level hockey. And at the end of the game, I was coming into the scorer's box to get my personal effects, and I was coming into the penalty box, and I opened the door, and the dad in there is just screaming at me that I called too many penalties on their team. And he slams the door in my face, just about knocks me back onto the ice. And I opened the door again. I said, sir, you're going to have to get out of here. Just leave. The game is over. And he's screaming at me and screaming at me. Finally, he kind of hops out of the penalty box into the scorer's box and out. So I come in, and I was talking to the scorekeeper, and the scorekeeper was saying, this guy is, there's something going on here. And all of a sudden he comes running back in, and he grabs a big industrial-sized can of Lysol, which they use to clean the clocks and all the scoring equipment for different crews. And I thought, oh my God, he's gonna throw it at me. And I went to put my hands up, and instead of throwing it at me, he just walked up and he fogged me right in the face. Solid blast. And I don't know if you've read the ingredients of a Lysol can, but there's ammonium sulfate, there's all kinds of stuff in there that's supremely unhealthy. And this was at the end of the game. And after sitting in the locker room for a while, I found out the police had been called, and we gave our statements and everything. And I told the officers, I want to press charges. That's assault. So they found him 2 hours later, and he was charged. And my brain just went, enough's enough. It's time to readdress some type of penalty for just poor adult behavior. I don't know what kind of switch goes off in somebody's mind that says, I'm going to spray some Lysol on that guy's face because I don't like the way he officiated, but that has to come to an end. Period. There's no place in sport for that. None. And some people will say, Ron, you're on your high horse. You're damn right I am.
What would you say to that guy right now? What would you try and use it as a teaching moment, or would you just blast into him? How would you attack it?
Right now, I would use it as a teaching moment. I wouldn't even ask him what went through his head. I would say, you know what? It's time for you to grow up. It's time for you to realize that this is not about you. You should be cheering for your kids. You should be enjoying the experience they're having in this game. And you should let whatever happens happen, because you can't change it. But the hockey player in me would just pull his shirt over his head and just start hammering him. I'm just saying, because some people only respond to that. I don't know. I don't get it, you know? I spend a lot of time in the penalty box. I'm the first to admit it. All of my friends who have played with me will tell you the same thing. It is what it is, right? I like that physical side of the game, always have.
How are you feeling health-wise after this spray?
I've had headaches now for, what day is it today? Wednesday? 4 days in a row, all day. Not debilitating ones. I mean, I grew up with migraines, but I literally have not had a headache in 10 years. My migraines stopped. I don't get headaches anymore. Had one all day, every day this week.
Did it get in your eyes?
No, so I have a shield.
Yeah.
But I inhaled it. Nothing in my eyes. And it was a pretty good blast. It's one of those big industrial, like a fogger thing, right? Yeah. I was more prepared for him to throw it at me, because I mean, we have some padding on and elbow pads and helmet, and I thought, oh, well, here it comes. And no, didn't throw it.
what would you tell parents nowadays? Like, you know, all those incidents, even though they're not many, like you say, more times than not, the game goes off fine, but every now and again, I mean, I've been to a fair amount of games where parents are going off the handle at the ref. What would you tell those parents? Like,
The same thing I just told you. This is about your children. You put your children into a sport to teach them sportsmanship, to teach them trust in teammates, to give them the opportunity to grow as athletes and to grow as people and to form friendships that last forever. Don't destroy it. Don't act like an idiot. It's not your game. You're not involved. You are strictly a fan. Be a fan. Support your kids. Let them enjoy it. Don't be that person that gets thrown out of a rink and then the whole team, because trust me, the whole team in the locker room is going to talk about how Jimmy's dad got kicked out of the game. There's no positive in that. None. Zero.
am I, as a member of the media, making too much of a deal of this?
No.
Is this something that shouldn't even?
No, I wish this would be on Sportscast every day. Because it's not just hockey. It's happening in softball. It's happening in basketball. It's happening in almost every sport where the bad egg parent or parents are intruding into the playing of the game. We've seen assaults on hockey officials. We've seen assaults on basketball officials, on baseball officials. Why? You think your child is going to the pros and going to come home with a big sack full of money for you? I got a statistic for you. 0.1% You can apply that to every single sport. 0.1% of the kids playing any sport will make it to a paying position as a pro athlete. Hockey's a perfect example. There's 32 teams in the National Hockey League. That's 700 some odd pro athletes. There's 700,000 kids playing youth hockey. Do the math. It's 0.1%. Your kid is not going to play pro hockey. Zero, almost zero chance. Let them enjoy their time in the sport. Let them play. Let them go off to college, be doctors, lawyers, whatever. Let them enjoy it. Don't intrude on that because you're not helping. You're hindering.
Well, interesting stuff. Is there anything that I haven't asked, I think, Ron, that you wanted to address or?
No. And thank you for this. The biggest thing is just having now personally experienced that angst and that anger and that, I don't know, the whole assault perspective from what happened. I don't know. Words. I'm a pretty wordy guy. Words fail me with this. I honestly, the more we can get out, please stop doing that. Please just let your kids enjoy the game. Quit being jerks. Because pretty soon your kid won't be playing hockey because we won't be able to have officials. And that's probably the one sport where if you take the officials away, you have anarchy in seconds because it's such a fast game and it's so physical and so, yeah, you can't play without officials. You just can't.